Thanks for checking out the Brad and John Show podcast. This segment of the show is brought to you by John Combest's book, Stalking, Harassment, Internet Trolling, A Guide to Recovering and Rebuilding After Online Attacks. It's a great reference if you've ever been the unfortunate target of a social media attack. It's available on Amazon. Just search John Combest. That's C-O-M-B-E-S-T, John Combest, and the book will show up in your search results. Now it's time for another segment of the Brad and John Show. Can you handle it?
I'm Egbert, the owner of this station. Check out my website at egbert.com. That's E-G-G-B-U-R-T, egbert.com. Now it's back to Brad and John. Check out their website at bjshow.co. The BJ Show? Come on, guys. Anyway, here's B and J.
We're into the third segment. This is segment C, and I appreciate everybody listening. Now we have, and John has been good about this. He bugged me for the first 2 weeks of us doing the show, and I did not heed his bugging and actually backed off. But over the weekend, Brad fired up his soldering iron and got his clippers out and his RJ45 crimping tool, and now we are streaming live on, and you can find the link either on bjshow.co. Scroll down a little bit from the it's a 300 by 250 banner that's there on the front page. Same situation on egbert.com. Scroll down a little bit, you'll see the blinking banner. Matter of fact, you'll see Egbert's beautiful face there, and he wanted to do this. I thought this was sort of goofy, but in order to get to the streaming, you have to click on his nose. So
I know. Well, I mean, he could have picked worse places, Brad.
I guess.
And by the way, now starting this morning, you can also find a link on my website on johncombest.com. And thanks to Brad, you can also find a link on Friday. We had a great conversation on the air with Taylor Burks. And Taylor graciously answered the phone when Brad called him. And so that interview, that conversation that Brad had with Taylor Burks is up from our Friday show as well.
Can I ask you a question, John? And give me an honest answer, okay?
Okay, sure.
Do you think I'm a jerk when I do that, when I call people live on the air like that?
No, I don't think so at all. I think that if you called Eigel once a week, it would be a nuisance and an annoyance, and he would very gentlemanly just start avoiding us more and more. But I think that on occasion to call people live on the air, I think calling Taylor was great. If I would have changed one thing about your phrase, Brad, you know what I would have taken out?
What's that?
You asked Taylor if he was just going to, quote, cut and run, which is something you never say to a guy that actually served in military combat. But other than that, I thought the conversation was fantastic.
Well, but see, once again, we'll talk about that briefly here. I liked the guy the first time I talked to him because the interesting part
he's
of this.
He's a real guy. I'm sorry to interrupt.
No, you're exactly right. And this was the thing, when I first got into the radio business, this was the thing that was stressed to us like left and right. Be a real person. Don't be a phony baloney. Because we've all seen like the videos of like the Bill O'Reilly, who seems like this, back in the day, he was like this, he was a sharp guy. He was a news reporter. And then there's the infamous Bill O'Reilly meltdown video.
We'll do it live.
Exactly.
Sucks.
Right. And then which was the cartoon shows did a version of that? Was that Family Guy?
It might have been. It was either. Well, I don't know. I think Robert Smigel did one on SNL one time for TV Funhouse, but maybe Family Guy did it too.
If you don't know what we're talking about, this was when Bill O'Reilly was doing the Inside Edition show, and they were doing takes on. They were finishing up the show, and they were doing essentially his outro, we'll call it, from the show. And apparently he kept blowing it or something, kept having technical problems, and he just goes ballistic on the set. And he just is, excoriating the crew and the staff and the whole bit. And you're going like, wow, that guy is a jerk. Would you?
Yeah, like just an inch below the surface, you have that kind of rage.
Right. But not only that, it's to the point where, matter of fact, there's this interesting thing. I watch all these crazy, stupid videos. I can't even remember who the director was, but there was an actor who did a movie, 30, 40, 50 years ago, one of these iconic movies. And they said, how did you get along with the director? And he says, I thought he was a terrible person because if you were beneath him, he was terrible to you. If you were above him, he was kissing their butts all the time. And I said, on the second day on the set, he says, I told him 5 words, and that's the only 5 words I ever spoke to him. And the 5 words were, go go F or your blump blump self a-hole, right?
Wow, yeah.
Those are the 5 words, and I'm going like, wow, those are some heavy 5 words.
Hey, and as we get back to Taylor real quick, one of the things that's an example of that, I remember last year when or 2 years ago, I should say, candidates try to be so polished and they only want to talk about issues that are important. And I remember there were some guys that put together kind of remember around 2021, 2022, cryptocurrency was still really hot. And somebody asked Taylor, if I recall this correctly, to do essentially a podcast, I think it was, or maybe it was a YouTube live video talking about how cryptocurrency could play into like the Federal Reserve plans and such. I don't remember the exact particulars, but Taylor took part in it. And I remember thinking, it's pretty cool for somebody to take a risk like that. And why not? Like Taylor I believe, has a functional knowledge of cryptocurrency and Bitcoin and such. And just because it's not like an approved issue or something real serious, why not go out there and talk about it,
Well, like I said, I like the guy. I called him, and you're exactly right. I apologize about the cut and run because he was a Navy hero. So I won't. I retract.
I don't think he takes it too personally, Brad.
Okay, Brad's top 3. You ready?
I'm ready.
In third place.
Do you know what there's a shortage of that nobody talks about?
Oh, I could think of a few things I need every day, Brad.
$10 bills.
Oh, wow.
Okay. And
good old Hamilton.
Well, I have noticed this for a while. And matter of fact, yesterday when I was out at a restaurant and I paid for my food at the cashier, when she opened up her cash drawer, I noticed there was the blank spot with the $10 bills. And I said to her, because she gave me change, she could have easily given me, I gave her 20 and it was like 9 something or other, and she could have given me one $10 bill and some change. Instead, she gave me 2 5s. And I said to her, how come you don't have any 10s? She says, for whatever reason, we don't know. We rarely have any $10 bills. So, and I've noticed this quite a lot because I'm a fast food guy. A lot of my orders come to, $6, $7, $8. I pay with the $20 bill. What do I get? I get change, dollar bills, and 2 5s back.
Interesting.
There is a shortage of $10 bills. I do not know why. I think that's sort of curious. And the lady at the restaurant she says they are always short of $10 bills. And she says she gets sometimes people complaining to her that when she gives change for especially like a 20, she gives back 2 5s and say, can't you give me a 10? And she said, I would if I could, but I don't have any 10s. So why are there no $10 bills?
That's a good question. Let's create a conspiracy theory, Brad.
Right.
Like, here's the thing. They're being taken out of circulation, and they're gonna replace it with a Barack Obama bill.
I don't know. I mean, it's just one of those things. Maybe all the people love the play and then the movie. It was a movie, wasn't it?
Hamilton. Yeah, I didn't see it. I mean, come on. You think I'm gonna set the real play about where you have and didn't they get a Hamilton? Wasn't he a black guy?
Well, they're all black guys.
Okay, yeah.
Once
Well,
again,
that's realistic.
We have the remember we have the whole insensitivity that where Hank Azaria stopped doing Simpsons because he didn't want to be. He thought it was politically insensitive that he was doing Apu, the Indian guy who ran the Quickie Mart.
That's and the same thing with the guy that did the voice of Cleveland on Family Guy. Now they're gonna be really mad because I'm working on my own screenplay, Brad. I got a Harlem Globetrotters thing, and it's all white guys. It's actually all Asian guys. It's a bunch of guys I went to Wash U with. Okay. And we're going to be – and the ironic thing is the Washington Generals will all be really slow black guys, and my Asian team will just dunk on them and, throw confetti at the crowd. It's great. Play a little Sweet Georgia Brown.
Okay, whatever, John.
Up a notch to number 2.
Number 2 is – and this is almost a tie for number 1, but number 2 will be – Austin, Texas. Have you read what's going on in Austin, Texas?
No, I don't know. Austin has a very special place in my heart, but go ahead.
Austin has gotten really bad because back in 2020, they defunded the police. I think at one point in time, they took a third of the police budget. And not only that, there were a couple different times where the city council negotiated a deal with the police union. And at the last minute, the city council pulled the negotiation, said, no, we don't want to give you that. So they've had an unbelievable number of police officers retire. You think we're understaffed in St. Louis. They are tremendously more understaffed per capita in Austin, Texas. Crime crime has gotten crazy weird in Austin, and it's gotten to the point where I read a story of a woman who was driving her car, and I believe she was involved in a one-car accident. She was injured. Her kids were injured. One of her kids was bleeding. One of her kids had a broken leg. She called 911. Nobody answered. She repeatedly called 911. She finally called an Uber that took her and her kids to the hospital. How bad is that?
That's really now. You said 2020. Was this in response to St. George Floyd and all those riots? Did they decide,
exactly
okay, that's
right.
too much, we're going to defund the police?
Now, if you know the whole situation with Austin has always been sort of interesting. One point in time, I had a chance to go to work at KLBJ, AM&FM in Austin, Texas, which, by the way, LBJ,
Oh, yeah, I get it.
Those stations were owned by the Lyndon Baines Johnson, the former president of the United States.
Yeah.
And he also owned a TV station. I believe it's still KLBJ.
But Austin's great, yeah.
Well, it was always sort of known as sort of being, matter of fact, they prided themselves on being weird.
Keep Austin Weird is the T-shirt.
Right, keep Austin weird. Well, now it's gotten really bizarre, and what's happened is a lot of the West Coasters have moved to Austin, including Elon Musk. Elon Musk essentially said, I'm done with California. This is ridiculous. All the stupid rules and regulations and the taxation and the economy's in the toilet and the government keeps putting more and more regulations on business. He moved his headquarters to Tesla and I believe one of his major plants to Austin, Texas. And over the weekend, I saw not one, not two, but 3 different articles and 3 different publications talking about the tremendous crime problem they're having in Austin. And once again, when you think of, for the most part, I don't know about you, John, when I think of the Texas cities, Houston, very up-and-coming city. Obviously, it's gotten to be a top 10 city. Dallas-Fort Worth, sure. San Antonio, all very, to me, and I've been to all those cities. I've been to Austin a couple times. I've been to Dallas several times. You think of them being, places where people want to go. Matter of fact,
yeah, of course.
That's where obviously Mark Cuban decided to end up. He bought the Dallas Mavericks. He still lives in Dallas. Talks about how he loves Dallas. It's a very happening kind of town. Not a lot of old fogies there like we have in St. Louis, but. And once again, they can't get enough police, and it's just like a crisis. Okay.
Well, and I would just real quickly on Austin say too, but I mean, part of their reputation is being kind of an outlaw city, right? I mean, that's where Matthew McConaughey moved. Remember, Willie Nelson early on was associated with Austin because of its outlaw nature.
Oh yeah.
There.
Now it's just a bunch of weirdo progressives. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I think there's still some good Republicans there. I think there's still some good conservatives in some parts of Austin, Texas. We have listeners in Austin, Brad. That's why I'm giving them a shout out there.
I'm counting the Republican census in Austin. 1, 2, 3. I see 4. 4 of them in Austin.
I'll tell you off the air our connection to Austin when we get off the air because I don't want to out anybody that doesn't want to be outed that's listening to us right now in Austin. Go ahead.
And now,
the number one.
I heard this over the weekend, and I almost didn't believe it, and I double-checked it, and it was correct. Gavin Newsom has pushed this through the California legislature that now fast food restaurants have to pay $20 an hour minimum wage, okay? And I have been told that, and I don't know if you know this or not, but the McDonald's, the franchisees can, to a certain extent, price their own menu items. Like, for example, I can tell you, I can go buy a hamburger. Excuse me, hold on a minute. I can go buy a hamburger at one McDonald's and it's $1.09. I can go to another McDonald's and it's $1.49. Okay, it's just localism, and that's all within the St. Louis area. Okay,
sure.
I have heard, and I'm not being able to confirm this, that at one McDonald's in California, a Big Mac is now $12. Not
holy cow.
Not the Big Mac meal, just the Big Mac. Okay, so Gavin Newsom passed this bill, California State Legislature, that raised the minimum wage to $20 for fast food workers, with the exception, there's one exception. If the restaurants serve bread, they're exempt.
What?
If the restaurants serve bread, in other words, if you can order bread on the menu, the restaurants are exempt from the $20 per hour minimum wage.
So guess what? Every restaurant's offering bread now.
No. Here's the interesting angle of the story. One of the major donors to Gavin Newsom's campaign and a good buddy of Gavin Newsom is like either the CEO, I can't remember which one it is, the CEO or one of the largest investors in guess what chain?
Panera.
Exactly.
Only because you teased it earlier. I would have never guessed that on my own, Brad.
Exactly. They put an exemption in the state law because his buddy is Mr. Panera. So the exemption is you have to pay $20 an hour for restaurant workers unless you serve bread. So that exempts all the Paneras. And I'm going,
that's absurd. Well, but what's to keep a franchisee of Burger King to go into corporate and saying, listen, we got to at least offer some kind of a bread option on the menu?
I said the same thing. See, if I was a Burger King franchisee, see, the only problem is and once again, if you're a franchisee, you just can't do stuff like that. You got to get permission.
Yeah, you got to follow the corporate rules.
Right.
But I mean, if enough of you got together and said, listen, Mr. Burger King and Mr. Wendy's, how about we offer a special bread plate?
Right.
It's like a charcuterie board, but it's different type. Here's a little snippet of rye. Here's a little snippet of white. You probably can't say white. That's probably illegal in California. But here's some brown bread. Here's some indigenous bread.
Well, it could just be like a little mini loaf that they buy, that's frozen. They just throw it in the oven, and boom.
They just heat it up in the oven.
Right.
Just like Mom used to make.
McBread, right? Hey, come by and get a new McBread.
That's just outrageous. And also, so Brad, why 20? Because it's a round number. Why not 21?
Hey, look, I've said this all along, and this is the interesting thing. I've actually had discussions with union people when this comes up, and I go like, well, why not $100 an hour?
Yeah.
Well, hold it, $100 an hour. I go, well, I've said this before when Shelley and I used to do the show. Honest to God, and I'm not kidding you when I say this, if minimum wage was $100 an hour, I would go to work back at Steak and Shake where I worked when I was in high school. And I would say to the manager,
of course you would.
I would work one shift a week, give me 10 hours a week, give me 1 day a week, and I'm going to work 10 hours. So I'd make $1,000, okay? Take $1,000 times 52, that's $52,000 a year. Okay, think about that for a minute. You make $52,000 a day, $52,000 a year. You're off 6 days, you work 1 day. Think of the life you could have. I mean,
not bad.
$50,000. If let's say you had a relatively, inexpensive apartment or a house or something like that. Let's say you own your house free and clear. You could travel. You could do whatever you want. You could hang out at the beach. If you could take a $49 Southwest Airlines flight to wherever you want to go.
Wherever you wanted to.
And just hang out for 2-3 days. Come back. Go to the casino. Get some free drinks. Live the ultimate lifestyle of a do-nothing, right?
I can't wait to see you at the next Jobs for Justice rally with a sign that says $20 is not enough.
That would be me.
You will fit right in, Brad. We won't be able to pick you out of that crowd at all.
John, our time's up.
All right. Hey, this was a great show today. Our first day of live streaming, Brad. It's just beautiful. March 4th, a day that will live in infamy.
Thanks for checking out the Brad and John Show podcast. This segment of the show is brought to you by John Combest's book, Stalking, Harassment, Internet Trolling, A Guide to Recovering and Rebuilding After Online Attacks. It's a great reference if you've ever been the unfortunate target of a social media attack. It's available on Amazon. Just search John Combest. That's Combest, John Combest, and the book will show up in your search results. Now it's time for another segment of the Brad and John Show. Can you handle it?